Dale Moore, a 2011 inductee into the CARB Hall of Fame. Dale, it's a pleasure to actually get to sit down and talk with you. I've seen you on the track many times, so it's not like we're going to be talking about somebody or something that I don't know anything about. Dale, in 1956, your wife's uncle, Ernie Neal, worked the back gate. I mean, he had some other responsibilities at Olympic, but he worked the back gate, and he had tickets for you and your wife, more or less, for most of the races. And is that what really kind of got you started? I mean, just showing up at Olympic and see what was going on?
Yeah, well, Olympic and Riverside. He did the printing of the programs and everything for, and we had to pick up Judy's aunt because she didn't want to go to the racetrack quite as early as Ernie had to show up, so it worked out to where I really got interested in it. The racing.
I can't think of a better way to do it than when it's free, too.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, it didn't cost anything to get in.
That's a good deal. But in 1957, you get married, and you decide to buy your first race car, and I love this, $125. I mean, that would be totally unheard of today.
Exactly.
But $125 for a 37 Ford with a flathead motor.
That's right, yeah. Lock, stock, and barrel, $125, included the tow bar that I towed it home. Flat towed it. I had to use a flashlight for a tail light.
Yeah. I was going to say, I guess in those days, you better hadn't messed too much up if you were going to tow it home with the tow bar.
Well, a lot of them did it. I mean, it was pretty crude in those days.
1958. Now, you've got Don Boggs driving the car for you, and he rolls over the car, and at this point, you decide, well, heck, I can do that. Why don't I drive?
That's right. The very first lap of a heat race, he turns it over, and I thought, well, Jiminy Christmas, I can do that good. So that was my first race.
I'll do that, never mind. Okay. You're driving a car built by Bill Lackey and Red Mackey that you say weighed a ton. I think you were telling me it was made out of 4-inch
channel iron,
and it was powered by a Hudson Hornet motor. Now, like you say, man, this is some, I hate to use this word, antique racing almost. Because, man, that was something.
Yeah, that old Hudson Hornet, though, it had a lot of torque.
Now, wasn't that an inline 8?
Inline 6.
Inline 6, okay.
Yep. Had 3 13/16 bore and 4.5-inch stroke.
Wow.
If you could get 6,000 RPMs out of it, you were doing good.
Yeah. But still, that kind of tells us a little bit about that era.
Yeah.
In fact, most of these cars were homemade, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, nobody had the money to go out and buy a car. I mean, that was unheard of. You scrounged the salvage yards and your own ingenuity and come up with a car.
That was it. Yeah. But just 5 years into racing, 1963, and you get your first track championship, and that's at Riverside Speedway.
Yep.
And that had to make you feel pretty good. I mean, still you're talking 5 years of out there digging and trying and seeing what works and what doesn't, but the first championship at Riverside.
That's right. I mean, I had some good help. North Clay Automotive sponsored our car, and Buford Weddle was the manager there, and he was helped us in the pits. And then a fellow by the name of J.D. or Duck Corum, where he bought all of his parts, traded with him, and he talked them into a deal where they'd supply the motors for us, and we'd have $125 in a completely rebuilt motor.
How much?
$125 in the motor. We got all the parts it cost, and they did all the machine work.
Okay.
And then we had a $100 claim motor, so consequently we had our motor claimed 7 times. Now some of these motors we bought back. I think we ended up with 3 motors at the end of the year. But it was a pretty good deal. I mean, it running a small block Chevy and had a great time, and they had a lot of cars that year. I remember, I think I've still got that record. I'm the only one to win the Consi, the B, and the A feature, all starting in the back at the same night.
Oh, wow. Oh, my gosh.
Needless to say, I might have been driving a little over my head, but I was taking no prisoners.
In '64, you do qualify for your first Knoxville Nationals.
Right.
And you end up having a fairly decent run at it.
Well,
yes and no.
No, not really. I crashed. And that's kind of bad. You know, I was running decent in the feature, but
that's what I mean. You were at one time. You were running.
Oh yeah, I was running real good. I was running fourth in the big race, and then I had to crash in the wall.
And I think you were also saying that Knoxville was really not one of your favorite deals to go to.
No, because there was so many people showing up there with cars that had a lot more money than we had. I mean, I was a working man, blue-collar racer, and I didn't have the funds to keep up with some of the boys. Yeah, I made it I've only raced there 4 years for the Nationals, and I made it 2 out of the 4 years. But this second time was in '66, and I won my heat race. But unfortunately, as I took the checkered flag, the engine exploded. There's a little bit of
night over
fuel additive we put in it, a little too much.
Oh, really? In '68, there's a little car that comes along by the name of the Tijuana Taxi. Now, this has got to be quite a story. Could you tell me just a little bit about the Tijuana Taxi?
Well, there was a song. The Tijuana Taxi was popular at that time, and I don't remember exactly who come up with that. I think it was one of the daughters of the race car owner, who was Dick and Don Furr. And anyway, it became a pretty popular little car because the song became popular, and it served me well. I mean, I won my first feature at Olympic Stadium in that car, and then we went on and won some other races in it, and I drove it for 2 years, and we really had a good time with it.
Yeah.
I mean, it made a family deal out of it.
Yeah. Catchy name. I'm sure everybody picked up on that right away.
Sure.
In '73, you actually kind of make the first attempt to retire around that time. May not be exactly that year, but around that time. But Dick Furr, who owned a Oriental rug company, came to you and wanted you to drive the new car.
Well, he was co-owner of the Tijuana Taxi, but they had sold that car by then and built another car, which I don't know. That car got built, and I didn't really care for it that much. But anyway, in '73, the son and father decided to go their separate ways, and that way the son could take the car that they had built, and they was going to build a new one in '73. So Dick and I, along with Mark Randall, built the Flying Carpet Special. And like you said, Dick owned the Oriental rug business, and there again, that car kind of became a famous car, and we won quite a few races in that car.
I was going to say, that's one of them I really, really remember, because, man, when you'd pull up into Victory Lane, why they would roll out that carpet and out you'd come.
Oh, yeah, that was quite a deal. I mean, you know, everybody wanted a picture of that.
Yeah.
You know,
and how fittingly it was named the Flying Carpet Special.
Yeah, because it did run pretty good.
Yeah. In '74, you are the Midwest Modified Sprint Car Association champ. But things around this time are kind of starting to signal, I guess we could say, the end of your career, in that the car owner's having some health problems, the equipment's starting to get used up pretty good, and were you starting to lose the urge to race, or? Well,
it wasn't quite that early. It was later than '74. It was more like '76.
Okay.
And, you know, I'd had a good run. I was happy, and I think it was after the '77 season that Dick actually sold the car, and I was out of a ride, so, which was fine with me. You know, my job situation was such that it was taking up a lot of my time, and so we parted good friends, and he got his health problem taken care of, but he just wasn't ready to get back and
didn't want to go with the Rugers. I can't even get the right word.
Riggers. Yeah.
Of racing, which it is a long summer
Yeah,
ordeal
that's
to go
right.
through.
That's right.
Some of the big moments in your career, Dale. Your first win at Olympic, I know you said you ran there 10 years before you actually got that first win.
At the Olympic. I won my first feature at Riverside in 1960 with the Hudson Hornet, by the way. And then, of course, I won several in 63 when I won my first championship. But Olympic.
Tough place.
Oh, yeah. I mean, just for some, I'd led some races, but a lap car would get in my way, and I'd have to practically spin out. You know, that was a tough little place to run. I mean, there was cars all the time. You had to really be on your toes, and I wasn't always able to whoa it quick enough, but that was a big moment, you bet. Yeah.
And also, I think a lot of people in modern day don't have the emphasis on what in that day was the big races, were the fair races.
True.
In 72, you won the state fair race.
Yeah. In fact, the fella standing right over there is the engine that we used. You don't see him, but anyway, it was kind of you might say, a group project.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Mark Randall nephew actually owned the car. His nephew was in the Navy, and we'd been sending him what we called a royalty check about every week in the weekly show. And then Mark worked with a fellow by the name of George Austin, who had a 350. And anyway, we borrowed his motor and went down and won the B modified at the Missouri State Fair. And we all had a great time. And we later bought that engine from George when I went back to racing with the Furs in 73.
And one other race that you were telling me about was at Lakeside, and of course I think, as you also mentioned, the races back then were a little longer, but it was a 50 lapper at Lakeside, and you had to start in the back of the pack.
Yeah, I got stuck in an early heat race where there wasn't any passing. I mean, there's two cars running side by side, and I couldn't drive through them. So I thought, well, if I can qualify, I think I finished fourth. You had to make, or maybe fifth. I don't remember. It's been so long ago. But anyway, I made it, and I started quite a ways back. And on the white flag lap, I took the lead. Took the white flag
last lap.
next to the last lap.
Yeah.
Yep, I sure did.
Yeah.
And I don't think I ever run that high on a racetrack, because I could have reached out and touched the fence, especially in 3 and 4. But yeah, that was a long time. Yeah, I'll never forget that, because I had to pry my hands off the steering wheel.
After 50 laps,
that's right.
No power steering.
No power steering.
Well, Dale, I want to thank you for sitting down and talking with us, and congratulations on your induction into the CARB Hall of Fame here for 2011. And all I can say is, like I told you earlier, we're getting into some of the guys that I can remember, and
there you go.
You are definitely one of them. So congratulations.
Well, I appreciate it, Mike. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Dale.
You bet.